okay, eliminate as many expenses as you can. What if you're beyond that, where you've set yourself into such a deep hole where it's like, I'm already eliminating all the expenses that I don't need. It's like, okay, your advice is going to be different there.
You know, my whole upbringing was like up and down like that. So, you know, in hindsight, it makes sense because you were freaking out a lot more than I was. Not only was it that I know we're going to be okay, but I think I had already been to rock bottom with money so many times in my life that it was like, we're going to be fine, man. Don't worry about it.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1281. Where you are today is not where you are forever. Today, for episode number 1282, is your relationship with money hurting you? I was thinking of all the people I have talked to in our community, but other podcasts I've been on, other people I've met, and the realization I have come to, and I don't know why it's taken me this long to get here, but if you didn't either go to school for finance or get a job that required you to understand numbers and money, or were raised in a family that understood money, odds are you probably do not understand money. Just like, unless you've studied relationships, it's probably not second nature for you to know how relationships work. Maybe you've struggled with relationships in the past. If you didn't have a unique reason and a unique piece of necessity to study how fitness worked and physiology worked, maybe you've struggled with accomplishing your fitness goals in the past. The problem with this is, in a way, I guess in a weird way, your relationship with money, if it is hurting you, it's probably going to continue to hurt you and hurt you more the less you focus on it. Because it's not, I mean, I don't really think anything is this way, but it's not one of those things you can just pretend doesn't exist. And I've worked with so many people at this point where some people they take pride in the fact that they're so cheap. They'll say, oh no, I'm so cheap. Like, I would never spend money on that. It's like, okay, I understand that seems like a benefit at times, but there's also detriments. I've also met and been somebody on the other side where it's like, yeah, I'm just abundant. I spend money on things all the time. Cool. There is a time and a place for that, but it also has some unique detriments. How do you become a balanced version of that? So just as an example, there's a lot of people listening who they might not spend $100 on an online course, but they would spend $100 going to dinner, or maybe going to the bar, or going to a concert, or going to a sporting event. That's not necessarily the most valuable use of your money. Now, if your relationship with money is money for me, the reasoning behind it is to fill a void. Money is only for entertainment. Money is for distraction. That's part of the relationship too. So today we're going to dive into all that. I'm sure Alan will have some sort of framework, but I'm just realizing that more than ever, Alan, and we were talking about this behind the scenes. Unless you have a reason to learn something, you probably aren't going to learn it at a very high level. Understandably, like, I don't know how to cook at all. I'm not good at cooking. I don't understand what temperature does what to what food. I don't understand. I took a food and nutrition class in high school, but I don't remember how to do any of that because it doesn't directly apply to me. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good frame for this episode.
I think that's an excellent frame. I also don't know how to cook, but if I had a goal to become a chef and I didn't know how to cook, that would be a real issue.
You'd be jeffing.
I'd be jeffing. And here's the problem. A lot of people in this analogy, right? So if I want to be a world-class chef, and I want to build my career on being a chef and opening a restaurant or a chain of restaurants, and I don't know how to cook or go learn how to cook, I'm in a lot of trouble. Here's the problem. A lot of people don't correlate that their life requires cooking, aka money in this analogy. Because yeah, you can get through life pretty easily without knowing how to cook. I mean, you can eat eggs. I know how to cook eggs. You can order out. You can surround yourself with other people who do know how to cook, and you can cook basic stuff. So we have a rice cooker and an Instapot. We put meat in rice and it's pretty bland. And then we order out like 2 times a week. So I can get through life pretty easily. I can flourish in life without knowing how to cook. Honestly.
Yeah.
I cannot flourish in life without learning money. And that's the difference. But the problem is most people don't have the necessity to learn about money. And you're right, you're not going to just stumble upon financial acumen. And so some people are very blessed. They grow up with parents who teach them about money. And then some people have caregivers that didn't know anything about money. And so the cycle continues. My purpose on this episode, Kev, I told you, I want people to contemplate their money story. And the reason why is because, is your relationship with money hurting you? When you understand your money story, you'll understand your relationship with it. And this is the analogy that I used. We did a relationship talks event on creating financial goals with your partner. And the feedback we got from the people who attended was really powerful after, because we went through our money stories. Emilia and I told our money stories, and we said this right out of the gate. We said, listen, we're going to tell our money stories, but we want you thinking about your money story. And we have opposite money stories. So Emilia's money story at a very high level here, because we don't have a ton of time, is she started, so her father was an entrepreneur and started a business. And as you and I both know very well, Kev, the beginning parts of entrepreneurship are nothing short of ridiculously challenging from the money perspective. And so she grew up where it was this tiny little townhouse in Worcester, and they couldn't put on the heat, and they ate out of like canned food, and she like went to bed with big blankets. And she actually tells the story about how in college, by this point, her family is way more successful and way more wealthy. And she went to one of the best schools really in the world. It's called Providence College, and it's a really, really high-end school, very, very expensive school. But that's not where she started. In her childhood, or early childhood, she remembers not turning on the heat. She remembers heavier blankets and going to sleep with her Uggs because the heat, wasn't on high. It was on very low. And then, they upgraded from a small little house to like a bigger house. And then they upgraded from like a bigger house to like a mansion on a mountain. And then, fast forward. And that's the entrepreneurial journey. The beginning is really, 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 really difficult. And the tail end is much more rewarding. And it's a lot of delayed gratification. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but here's my point. In college at Providence College, there's a lot of wealthy people that go to Providence College. And her roommates were like, why are you going to sleep with your Uggs on? She used to go to sleep with her Uggs on. And they made fun of her like playfully. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And she didn't realize it was just a habit from back in the day when they didn't turn the heat on because she was always so cold. And now we found out later she like hates the cold because of that and all kinds of stuff, even though I don't mind the winter very much. But anyways, I had the opposite money story, Kev. So she went from like very, very lower income class, not wealthy at all, like struggling to put the heat on, to like very, very, very wealthy on the high end in terms of her family, not necessarily her. She's still on her own financial journey. I told my story, which was actually the flip side. So for me, father passed away at 2 years old. Many of you know my story. I had a stepfather from 3 to 14. My real name is actually Alan McCorkle. Lazaros is my stepfather's last name. So I'm the only non-Greek Lazarus you'll probably ever see. And so my stepfather worked for a company called AGFA, and AGFA did computers for hospitals. And during the 90s, particularly in our country, the US, just the dot-com bubble. It was just flourish. So I remember ski trips and boats. We had a yacht. I would get the Dreamcast. Kev, you and I played Dreamcast back in the day in middle school. Dynamite Cop, my friend. You remember?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
That's crazy. And Xbox and PlayStation, all that stuff. And I remember Kevin came over to my place when we were in middle school. We were little kids, and he thought I was the rich kid. He thought I was rich. And I remember my buddy Kiki used to say, "You're rich." And I was like, "No, I'm not. What are you talking about?" I didn't know any better. I was just a kid. Yes, we had money, but not that much now that I think about it, right? But back then, that was a lot for their understanding. So anyways, we go from literally, we had multifamily homes that we owned. We had ski trips, and we had a yacht, and we had, snowmobiles, and we had multiple cars, and my mom drove a BMW, and I didn't know any of this. I thought that was normal. My stepfather leaves when I'm 14 years old. And my mom at the time is a lunch lady for BVT, Blackstone Valley Tech. And so her income is so low and my stepfather leaves. He gets the yacht and the apartments. We get the home and the dog. And so our income, we went from like pretty high end. I remember going to the facility that they were building our custom yacht. We had 2 different yachts. And I remember going to see the half-built boat, being like, this is interesting. But anyways, so he leaves, and at the time, one of the most painful experiences ever on an emotional level. But then on top of that, I went from like not realizing that we had good amounts of money to literally, I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. And I went from like, I'm going to go to college and all this stuff to, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to afford college. Because my dream at the time was to go to WPI, which is a technical institute. It's kind of like a mini MIT is what they refer to it as. And it's $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. I can't go to WPI. I don't have any money. What are we going to do, right? So after that, I buckled down, and I still get emotional when I talk about this. I just buckled down and I grinded. I just grinded for years, and I got every scholarship I could, and I applied to every financial aid that I could, and I just had to bootstrap my way to get to go to school, and then at school, I had to do my best, and then I ended up, when I graduated college, even though in college I was so broke, Kev, I had no money. I remember I drove a $1,200 car. And my sister, my mom, and I didn't have much. And so then I go into corporate, and I was in LA for a time, and I come home, and then I start to climb again. And I go from, I get my first job, Oz Development. I'll never forget it. I was a product engineer for $65,000 a year. And for me, that was a big deal. And I had some internships at iRobot and different stuff like that. But then I go from 65 to eventually 85, 85 to 105, and then 105 to 125, and then I end my corporate career at almost $200,000 a year. And then I quit because at that point I paid off all my debt, and I made sure that we were good at home and we could keep the house. And, I basically was in a really good spot. And I remember I had about $150,000 in an investment account, and I bought a bunch of tech companies. I bought all kinds of different stocks and all that. So anyways, that's when you saw me, and I was like, on the beach making videos, eating Chipotle, lifting weights. That was when Kev was sold. This guy knows something days. I don't. Yeah, the good old days. Little did you know, behind the scenes, all I did was grind. But anyways, that whether it's Emilia's money story, where she went from having little to nothing to like wealthy, or my money story, where I went from like doing well as a family to literally completely broke. I don't even know how I'm going to go to college. I can't even afford lunch at school, to the roller coaster of back to the top of the income bracket. Because at the tail end, I looked this up, at the tail end of my corporate career, nearly $200,000 a year at the time was a 1% global earner. And that doesn't mean I'm a 1% net worth. It meant that I was earning upper 1% of yearly income. And I need to make that clear, because people are like, no, you're not a 1%. Like, I didn't mean net worth. I meant in terms of income. A lot of people don't know the stats, but it doesn't matter. Here's my point. I had a roller coaster with money, and so did Emilia. And we have emotions around this topic. There's so much. I just cried telling that story because it was so painful to go from, I don't understand why I can't get video games anymore. I don't understand why I can't go to college now. What happened, right? And I wasn't in control of any of that. I couldn't decide whether or not my mom and stepdad got along. And then on top of that, there was a lot of other stuff. But the reason I tell that story to our listeners is because my relationship with money was forged from both abundance and scarcity. And we have so much tied up in this thing called money that we don't realize. And it's kind of like, this is the analogy I used at the event. It's like a spider. If you're scared of spiders, Emilia, every time where there's a spider in the house, she calls me and she's like, don't kill it, but like, please get it. And so I'll put it in a jar and I'll bring it outside. And I'm not afraid of spiders at all. I don't care. But what if your if you're afraid of spiders listening to this, what if you're that afraid of money? You're never going to learn about spiders when you're scared about them. You won't touch a spider with a 10-foot pole, never mind go anywhere near it. So with spiders, what if you needed spiders to succeed in life? You do need money to succeed in life. So you're going to have to face this stuff inside you. You're going to have to figure out, were you well off or not? Where are you at? What's your money story? And that's really what the question I wrote down is, what's your money story? I told you mine, and Kevin has his own, and Emilia has her own, and her and I had to sit down and like work through this stuff. Like, what is our relationship with money? Like, if we want to be wealthy and we want to be abundant, we're going to have to face some of these mirrors and figure out where we're at, because she was still overly scarce. I said, sweetheart, we can turn the heat on. I'm not going to work in 65 degree, like in the winter. I'm not doing it. Like, I want the heat on. It's worth the money. But again, I didn't realize that she had so much stuff, conditioning from her past, and we all do. And that's really my point here, is get to know what your money story is, so at least you can understand where you're at.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda. I am a dental hygienist and a mom of 2 teenagers. I was first introduced to Kevin and Alan about 3 years ago, where I listened to a live Zoom training. I was really impressed with the value that they packed into that hour-long call, and that led me to their podcast page. I've been blessed to be able to be a student of them in that way through their podcast over the last 3 years. And the growth that I've seen in them, I guess, is what inspires me to keep coming back, because they not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And I see the changes in them, weekly, monthly, yearly. So that led me to book a consultation with Alan about 6 months ago. And I showed up to that call in the lowest spot that I have been at in my entire life. The empathy and compassion that he presented in that call, and how much work we still got done despite the state that I was in, was again very impressive to me, and I've been a one-on-one client ever since. Alan is someone that you want in your corner. I have grown so much over the past 6 months in my ability to make decisions, my confidence, the relationships that I have, my organization, my motivation, and I'm only just getting started. I've made so many big moves, and he is the biggest motivator and the biggest encourager, and he is a good human that genuinely wants the best in your life, your future, your love, your relationships, your wealth, and they just want to make the world a better place, and I believe that. And if you have the chance to be in the same room or on the same call or have these two in your life in any way, then you are blessed, and it is a gift. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything that you guys do and pour into everyone. And I'm just so excited to watch your journey keep unfolding and to be a part of that in any way that I can.
I went on a trip with a friend and their family. This was years ago. This was at this was the beginning of the Hyperconscious podcast days, I think. And we were playing cards one night. We were all drinking. And the family was talking about how when they were like an early family and they just had their kids, they literally used to have to get like Chef Boyardee and like that. That's basically, they just ate out of cans pretty much. And they lived in a really sketchy place in Massachusetts. And it was just interesting because I was hyperconscious Kev, and I was like, what was that like? Like I wanted to like unpeel the layers. Like, what does that mean for you now? How do you show up now? How did you get over that? What was that like? This is the interesting thing. It's almost like, so 2 things. It's almost like when you make it out, you think you got to do the same thing you did to make it out. And those are the people you'll see that are like, no, I'm not going to pay somebody to mow the lawn. Nope. I'm not going to pay somebody to do this. I'm going to do it myself. It's like, I understand that's empowering and that's what got you through in the beginning, but eventually that can become a detriment, and there's a lot that goes into that. Here's the other thing too. The reason it's so important to start talking about and becoming aware of this early is because the advice you get changes depending on where you are. There's a lot of people, what's the first thing people say? Like, okay, eliminate as many expenses as you can. What if you're beyond that? Where you've set yourself into such a deep hole where it's like, I'm already eliminating all the expenses that I don't need. It's like, okay, your advice is going to be different there. It very much is we're all in a boat and some of us are already taking on water, and you have to figure out if you're taking on water because it's completely different. So for somebody, it might be, okay, grab a bucket and start throwing water over the side. For some of us, it's too late to start throwing water over the side. We got to figure out how to plug the hole. For other people, like, you're beyond plugging the hole. You got to figure out what the next boat is.
You got to shoot one of those fireworks up.
You got to shoot a flare.
and flare up a SOS flare.
There's a lot of it contextually that's different. And I think that's important too. That's why it's so hard to give advice when on an episode like this, because for some people, it's like, you should understand that your time is valuable and maybe spending money to buy your time back is worth it for you. Other people, it's like, you're not at that stage. So that's why it's very hard. But just to Alan's point, you have to understand at the end of the day that money is a tool. And I think if you can get to the point in your relationship with money where you understand that money serves a purpose and money is a tool. I said that to Taryn the other day. I said, isn't it interesting how when you start getting more money, you start to see how it kind of all is a game? Like, all right, we're going to throw $2,500 at this, and we'll throw $1,000 at this, and it's like, that should work. Like, that all makes sense. But at one point in my life, it was like, I need all the money. It has to be in this account here, and I need that for certainty, and I need that. So it's a deep episode, and it's a very deep topic. But just to Alan's point, what is your money story? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're good.
I want to ask you a question quick, because I think that as someone who wasn't... you grew up not learning a ton about money. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. What is it like now, because you're CFO and you kind of understand why and how? And I mean, literally, Kevin tracks our finances for the whole company every single day. And through osmosis, with him and I masterminding, he's kind of learned like how to make money work for us rather than the other way around. And we come from a time in entrepreneurship where we literally got rejected for like muffins and coffees.
Yeah, credit card declined.
And you were like, your car wasn't working, and that was a dark time. That was brutal.
That was brutal.
For me, I think in hindsight, I didn't know this at the time, Kev. But I think one of the reasons why I wasn't so worried is because I had been there before. My whole upbringing was like up and down like that. So, in hindsight, it makes sense because you were freaking out a lot more than I was.
Of course.
Not only was it that I know we're going to be okay, but I think I had already been to rock bottom with money so many times in my life that it was like, we're going to be fine, man. Don't worry about it. Like, which
I thought
now
I
I
had
realized
climbed out.
You probably didn't feel very empathized with.
I thought I had climbed out because mine is kind of the opposite, where we grew up not having a lot of money. You probably would never know it though, because I always had nice things, but we didn't have a lot of money. Then I was broke I worked at the gas station. I pumped gas. Then I cleaned hospital floors and bathrooms. Then I was a personal trainer. Then I was a forklift operator. I did many, many, many different things, but I never made good money until I got the job where I was making $60 to $120 an hour, depending on where I was. Then I was making quote unquote good money. Then I left and became the brokest I had ever been, ever. Because I wasn't making any money. And I was $35,000 in debt, credit card debt. That, like, for me, it was like very flat, and then it was very high, and then it went down very fast, even lower than it was in the beginning. So it's...
what is it, Jim Rohn? He's like, they'll let you fly right past zero.
Right past zero.
Past zero.
That's when it's been a real challenge for me, because I didn't know how to make money. Like, I didn't really understand that. When we started this, I didn't understand money. I didn't understand investing in yourself to make more money. None of that really landed for me. None of that landed for me.
What would have gotten it to land?
I don't know if there was anything that could have. I don't know if there's anything that could have.
I got it to land for you.
Yeah, but I mean, years and years and years of you and I behind the scenes.
Right.
I don't know if there's any one thing that I could have said.
How'd you know we were going to make it out?
I don't know if I did. I just kept showing up. You thought we would, so I was like, that's good enough for me. Like, you know something I don't. Show me the way.
Well, I'm grateful I was right.
In Titanic,
Yeah.
if it's good enough for the rats, it's good enough for me, you know? It's like, they know
yeah.
where they're going. I don't know. But I think to Alan's point, you have to understand, what is your relationship with everything? What's your relationship with health? What's your relationship with wealth? What's your relationship with love? What's your relationship with the mirror? What's your relationship with the scale? Money is a big thing because it's something that we are not taught almost anything about, yet we use it every day. And that is unfortunate because there's many of us we're just not educated on it.
I know.
And I'm not talking down to you. Trust me. I had zero financial education. Zero. No clue what I was doing. Not a clue. And obviously now I've learned a lot through Alan and through being a business owner, which has been great. But what are a couple books you would recommend?
And the key, before I recommend any books, I want you to be careful because I don't want you to go online and type in how to lose weight and then just go with one thing. I'd rather you type in how to lose weight and start learning 20 minutes a day, every day, and then kind of piecing together the actual truth. You got to remember that everyone has their own goals, their own context. Like if you want a net worth of $75 million, like one of my clients, everything you do and don't do has to be completely different starting today. Honestly, starting 20 years ago, but starting today. So when you go learn about money, you got to be careful of the context and you got to be careful of who's teaching you. But what I would say is the one that I would read would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I do think it breaks it down in a simple way that teaches fundamental finance things, like how to invest in yourself, how to use money to make more money, that kind of simple stuff. But at the end of the day, if you do need help in the money arena, please reach out to me, alan@nextleveluniverse.com. One of my favorite things about coaching is I'm allowed to help people legally with finances without actually having to be like a licensed fiduciary. I just get to coach you and guide you, and you do your own thing. I'm just not going to manage any of your money, which I think is just awesome. I just want to educate people about money at the end of the day. So I would say Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a good place to start. There's another one that's really boring, and I know that's not the way to sell it. But remember, the most boring books are usually the most fundamental books because they're not fluffy, they're not shiny. Like The Compound Effect. It's a boring book, but it's the best book ever written, in my opinion. Here's one. I recommended this to everyone after the Relationship Talks event. It's a tiny little book. And let me tell you a quick story before I tell you this book. One of my mentors was the COO, CEO of iRobot back in probably the 2010s area. Anyways, very, very wealthy man, very, very intelligent man, engineer, big fan. When I told him about this book, he literally bought 20 copies and sent them to all of the people he mentors. All of his kids, all of his his girlfriend at the time's kids. That's how good this book is. It's very fundamental, it's very simple, it's very short. You can literally listen to it on Audible in like probably an hour or two. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And for the women listening, The Richest Man in Babylon, I don't want that title to turn you off. The Richest Woman in Babylon. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, but it's for men and women. And so it was by the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry. This audio program is. It's by George S. Clason, I believe, is the author. So The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. It's going to give you the fundamental understanding based on a story format about money that I think will change your life. And again, don't take anything as gospel, just contemplate.
All right. I think I read that or listened to that a while ago.
Probably.
Back in the day. I liked Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was the first self-help, self-improvement, personal development book I ever read.
It's a good one. You were playing MLB.
I was. Yeah. So I used to, this is a little hack. If you want to play video games and learn at the same time, you can. No, don't. I wouldn't recommend it. But I used to have my AirPods in. I don't think there was even AirPods at this point. I used to have my headphones in. I'd play MLB The Show while listening to a book. It's like I really dipped my toe. I really dipped my toe into self-improvement.
Yeah, that was back in the day when Kev thought it was cool to be into personal development. Little did he know it was less cool than he thought.
It's not as cool as you think. What you get from self-improvement is very cool, but the process isn't always, unfortunately.
Yep.
Next Level Nation, April 1st, 2023, live in Worcester, Mass. Next Level Live. We are super, super excited. I was actually falling asleep last night and I was having a bunch of ideas for this event. So Alan and I are super excited to see you all in person again. If we got the opportunity to see you last year, we're excited to see you again. The team's coming in. It's going to be an experience. We want this to be different than any live event you've ever been to, and we're going to make that a goal for ourselves as well. We want this to be different than any event we've ever attended or anything we've ever taken part of. So everything you need to know is in the show notes. We look forward to seeing you there, and we are excited.
Okay, so the 3 books that I had recommended I just looked it up, to the Relationship Talks event attendees, which, by the way, we do those every month. So if you're interested, let us know. Email me. The Illusion of Money by Kyle Cease. That's number 1. Number 2 is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And then the third one is actually the boring one that I actually think is the best of the 3. Okay? And I know that's not the way to sell it, but it is. It's boring. It's okay. It's supposed to be boring. The Science of Money, How to Create Wealth and Generate Income by Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is excellent. He's just so boring. He is. His work is so good, but he's just so boring. He's so blah. Love you, Brian, if you're obviously you're not listening to my show. But yeah, his work is really good. If you listen to anything Brian Tracy, it's really good. It's really fundamental. It's just super boring. So just do it in doses. And also, just side tangent. So Group 10 closes on April 4th. This is why you should invest in yourself. This is why you should invest in group coaching. It's well known in finance, in the finance world, that investing money in yourself, assuming it's a good resource, a good book, a good training, a good group coaching, a good coach, a good therapist, assuming it's a good resource, the return on investment is 30 to 1. So if you could go to Vegas and put $1 in and make 30 back every single time you put $1 in, how often would you play? This is why I buy books all the time. This is why I do my own training programs. I'm in a leadership training program that was $275 a month for the whole year. I am constantly investing in my own personal development. So is Kev. And so we're eating our own cooking here, not our programs, but other people's personal development programs and trainings and stuff like that. So group coaching is less than $100 a month for 3 months with the promo code. Reach out to Kevin or myself, get the promo code for less than $100 a month. You're going to get a 30 to 1, probably more than that, honestly, investment over your lifetime. So if you can invest $1 today and make 30 times that back over your lifetime with what you learn, trust me, it'll be worth it. It just doesn't seem like it in the moment because you're giving something away for something that you don't get back until later. Don't get duped by that. Join us for group coaching.
Next Level Nation. I don't know what episode there is tomorrow because I am behind and I'm just trying to stay afloat, honestly. And then Alan and I are working. Today's Sunday, so we're working all day Sunday. So tomorrow's episode is going to be great. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure it's going to be great. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.